Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We begin in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. It is a healthy tradition in democratic setups, organizations, and societies around the world, particularly in places like the United Kingdom, in India, as well as from this year, Kenya, to hold weekly sessions or gatherings that are referred to as question time, in which people in positions of power and authority are held accountable, and they have to field questions, critical questions often, pertaining to their policies, their actions, their decisions, or statements that they have made. And so in this spirit, since our Khoja communities worldwide are essentially democratic in terms of their structure and organization, and also the accountability and transparency that they hold their leadership to, in that spirit, I would like to hold a question time of my own with the Honorable President of the Nairobi KSI Nairobi Jamaat, Al-Hajj Zaheerabbas Zulfikar Khimji. Before I pose my critical question, I do want to take a moment to appreciate and congratulate and commend Al-Hajj Zaheerabbas Bhai for his intellectual and moral courage and his bravery in tackling certain unfortunate developments that we have seen on the AFTAB eSHIA YouTube channel, which in a way represents the Africa Federation. And so I have in front of me his public letter, which he wrote to the AFTAB team, registering his dissent and his protest at a very outrageous and ridiculous video heading and title that they had come up with. And so I'll quickly read the public letter, and it's really beautiful. He starts by saying, "Dear Amine Bhai Nassor," who's the president of the Africa Federation, and then he addresses other individuals who are associated with the AFTAB eSHIA YouTube channel. And these are Zuhair Bhai Jaffer, Sajjad Bhai Walji, Mullah Sajjad Bhai Walji, Salilabbas Bhai Sadak, and Sajida Bhai Somji. He says, "I'm very disturbed by the video clip that is still on the AFTAB eSHIA YouTube channel regarding Istigaatha." It was there at the time he wrote this email. I'm not so sure if it's still there. Perhaps Islaah admins can confirm. He writes, "I am perplexed at your thought process to claim that not believing in Istigaatha is shirk." So this was the title and heading of their video. That they were trying to imply with the heading and title of their video that not believing in Istigaatha, or the permissibility of calling out to entities other than Allah across the curtain of ghaib, is shirk, which is a laughable, ridiculous, ludicrous, impetuous, ill thought out concept that is not supported even by traditional 12 Shia scholars, as you shall see. So they really went over the top, and this is what happens when you become emotional, when you become reactive, when you become over passionate and overzealous. These are the kinds of mistakes that you unfortunately, and blunders that you end up making. Yani, if someone says, "I do not want to ask any entity across ghaib other than Allah," this is asl of Tawheed. This is the pure Tawheed that the Quran teaches and preaches. This is the way of the Anbiya in the Quran. You do not see the Anbiya and the Prophets invoking any entity other than or lesser than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala across the curtain of ghaib. So what? Now you're going to accuse prophets in the Quran of being mushrikeen or of being guilty of shirk? Like, this is, they are stooping to a level that is inconceivable. But alhamdulillah, our Khoja communities are blessed with visionary leaders like Al-Hajj Zaheerabbas Zulfikar Khimji Bhai, who was not going to sit quiet at an outrageous and egregious and shockingly factually inaccurate, counterfactual propaganda video like this. And so that's why he mentions very clearly, I'm very disturbed by the video clip that is still on the AFTAB eSHIA YouTube channel regarding Istigatha. I am perplexed at your thought process to claim that not believing in Istigatha is shirk. Either there is an error made or you do not understand the terms Istigatha and Shirk. Subhanallah. This is why we have so much faith in even the awam, in the lay people, because Al-Hajj Zaheerabbas Bhai is not some Qummi scholar or some Najafi scholar. He's just an enlightened, learned layperson who knows his deen, who knows his basics. And because of that, he knows that not believing in Istigatha is something that if someone rejects Istigatha across faith to entities other than Allah, I mean, if you're a super traditional person, you may disagree with that person, you may differ, you may make your case, but to call that shirk, that just defies all boundaries of reason. So he says there truly is a real need for reflection on the state of affairs at AFTAB and thought processes. And I agree with him. And I think not just me, but every learned, enlightened, traditional 12 Shia would also accept with this, would also agree with this. Then he says, find attached a video by Sheikh Bahmanpur, a reference to a Sheikh Muhammad Sa'id Bahmanpur, for your reference, similar to what Sheikh Nur Muhammad told Zuhair by Jaffer in my presence. So yeah, Sheikh Bahmanpur has stated, and this is there on public record in tafsir sessions held at Mahfil Ali, that he himself is against Istigatha to Ghayrullah, to the Imams, to Ahlul Bayt, even though he's a mainstream, orthodox, learned, traditional 12-verse Shia scholar. But he says this concept of calling out to Ya Ali, Ya Muhammad, and to the 12th Imam across Ghaib, or to the Ahlul Bayt across the curtain of Ghaib, he says this is erroneous, this is mistaken view that unfortunately has become very popular. It does not agree with the actual teachings of the Quran and Ahlul Bayt. So now what, you're going to accuse your own Sheikh Muhammad Sa'id Bahmanpur, who by the way, whose videos are also there on AFTAB Shia channel. Sheikh Muhammad Sa'id Bahmanpur is a scholar who features on that channel. So why are you making videos that end up discrediting scholars that you are yourself trying to promote from your channel? That does not seem like a wise policy unless your goal is to showcase. So Al-Islaah, for example, I've seen they also post or promote videos of traditional scholars, but that is because they want to showcase that this is what the traditional view is. In any case, he then says, I sincerely hope this message and video provides some inspiration for reflection. Our behavior is far away from makarimul akhlaq, especially in reference to what happened recently with salams and du'as, Zaheerabbas, Zulfikar, Khimji, SAAJ chairman. So I wanted to appreciate and commend Al-Hajj Zaheerabbas Bhai for his moral courage and his intellectual bravery for taking up this issue, because it takes a lot of guts to challenge publicly these kinds of violations, no matter how egregious they are. But because public sentiment is always in the favor of any kind of content that promotes ghulu, it is very difficult to challenge these things. But alhamdulillah, you can see that our Khoja communities are blessed with visionary leadership of the kind that is actually tackling and actively challenging these kinds of misleading and deceptive narratives. So khair, that is the first part. That is the first email that I wanted to express appreciation for. This was followed by a second email that is the subject of my question time. I agree with the first part of that. I actually, Al-Islaah admins have shared with me a screenshot of this, and these are all public letters. They are in the public domain and they were widely circulated on social media. And this is why we have no issues in displaying this as evidence so that people can follow and understand what we're talking about. So this is again Al-Hajj Zaheerabbas, Zulfikar Khimji writing to Tabligh and Afed and all these individuals associated with AFTAB eSHIA. He begins in the name of God, the most beneficent, most merciful. Wa alaykum as-salam. This is perhaps in a response to something that he received. He says, who is refusing Istigatha or Tawassul? I am not. The title of the video AFTAB released reads, not believing in permissibility of Istigatha is shirk. How? 2 question marks. And then he says, I have consulted scholars, namely Sheikh Ali Samoja, Sheikh Nur Muhammad, Sheikh Safdar Razi on this, and they all said not believing in Istigatha has nothing to do with shirk. So this also highlights a disturbing trend that we've been noticing with AFTAB eSHIA, is that the idea when this channel was set up was that they would have scholarly oversight. They would be under scholarly supervision to prevent them from making mistakes and blunders of the kind that we just saw. But apparently, the scholars are not to be seen. I mean, the immediate individuals whose names you can see, the people immediately responsible for this channel, are all lay people and clearly not very well versed in our sources. They're just taking videos from here and there and then trying to release them with very controversial titles so that they may serve as clickbait, perhaps. But the most disturbing part is how these people clearly, AFTAB eSHIA, they do not have scholarly supervision and oversight. This is the reason why they're making blunders like this. Previously, we notified you to their blunder where they misattributed a statement that's made by a lower level cleric. They took that statement and they attributed it to Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Sistani, and they presented it, they sold it to the public as his view because it was favoring the kind of ghulu narrative that they wanted to promote. So this kind of desperation on the part of AFTAB eSHIA is not a very good and positive sign. And it's also indicative of what I had complained about earlier, which is that these people are not running their videos by proper scholars. Because proper learned traditional scholars would not allow you to release these kinds of inaccurate videos, okay? And you can see the proof is right here in front of you from testimony of the learned and honorable president of Nairobi Jamaat. He says, I have consulted scholars. These are all mainstream, traditional, orthodox 12-verse Shi'i scholars. Sheikh Ali Samoja, Sheikh Nur Muhammad, Sheikh Safdar Razi. He consulted all of them on this, and they all said not believing in Istigatha has nothing to do with shirk. And they are right. Shirk means establishing partnership, associating with Allah. When a person says, I reject Istigatha to ghayrullah, I will not call upon any entity other than Allah. This is exactly the mantra of Ashabul Kahf. Go to Surah 18 of the Quran. You will see they say, Rabbuna Rabbus Samawati wal Ardi lan nad'uwa min dunihi ilahan laqad qulna idhan shatata. The Ashabul Kahf, Allah says, وَرَبَطْنَا عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ. We strengthen their hearts as reward for the stance, the collective stance that they took when they said, our sustainer is the Lord of the heavens and the earth. لَن نَدْعُوَ مِن دُونِهِ إِلَهًا. We shall not do dua. We shall not ask our hajat. We shall not call out or supplicate to any God besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if we do so, لَقَدْ قُلْنَا إِذًا شَطَطًا, we will be saying something that is very far away from correct guidance. Correct guidance and tawheed requires you to supplicate only to Allah, to reserve your du'as, like all your ibadat, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is basic Tawheed 101. And these people want to argue or claim that this is shirk. So obviously here, both the traditional Orthodox mainstream 12-verse Shia scholars and Islaah scholars and revivalist scholars, reformist scholars, everyone is agreed that not believing in Istigatha has nothing to do with shirk. If someone believes, the president continues, he says, if someone believes that our holy personalities can grant them their wishes independently of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that can be considered shirk, which is very important to be clarified in our communities. That is all. Refer to below from Ayatollah Sistani's Q&A. He gives the link. Then he says, the reason I had to do this publicly is AFTAB is not an ordinary board or AFED. Instead of us fighting alternate thinkers, AFTAB is giving them ammunition to hit us. These are the kind of issues. Now, this is the part that I wanted to have my question time over. He says, these are the kind of issues that Bata and Kamoonpuri stand on to misguide our community. AFTAB should never remotely be near controversy. Who will the community turn to if AFTAB does not have their absolute trust and confidence? AFTAB released a part 2 to clarify. Damage is done. Lastly, please don't fight those people who are on your side. We are not enemies, rather comrades in this struggle. Absolutely. This is what we at Islaah also maintain. People sometimes tend to think that we are some kind of anti-Shia organization or so. Wallahi, that is not the case. We want to promote the true teachings of Ahlul Bayt. And that's why, even if you disagree with us, if you truly love the Ahlul Bayt and have loyalty to the Ahlul Bayt, and you honor them and cherish them and believe in following their actual authentic teachings and transmissions, then you are our comrades. You are our brothers and sisters. You shouldn't be seeing us as the enemy. The enemies are the ghulat who conspired tirelessly and relentlessly to distort and misrepresent the true teachings, the pure tawheed of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salatu wasalam, which you find and which you recite as part of their du'as and their supplications. But my question to the Honorable President of the Nairobi Jamaat is to do with this allegation of his. When he says that these are the kinds of issues that Bata and Kamoonpuri stand on to misguide our community, our question to him is, how can you accuse us of misguiding the community? How have we misguided the community? If we tell you not to supplicate to entities other than Allah, how are we misguiding the community? We are upholding the actual teaching of the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt, and we have had extensive engagement with you as part of our responses to the Practical Priest. Just type Al-Islaah on YouTube together with Practical Priest, and you will see all the lectures that we did in which we gave you super abundant evidence from the verses of the Quran and clear verses of the Quran, as well as authentic teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salatu wasalam, in which they teach us not to supplicate, not to do dua or istigatha to any entity other than or lesser than Allah across the curtain of ghaib. I presented to you the wasiyah of Imam Ali alayhi salam to his beloved son Al-Hasan Al-Mujtaba alayhi salatu wasalam, which is there in Nahj al-Balagha. You can check it yourself. He says, وَلَمْ يُلْجِئْكَ إِلَى مَنْ يَسْتَشْفِعُ أَوْ إِلَى مَنْ يَشْفَعُ لَكَ إِلَيْهِ. Allah has not required you to bring any mediator, any intercessor between you and him. He has kept the channel of communication between you and him completely open and unencumbered, unimpeded by any kind of mediation or requirement for any intercessor or intercession. It's direct, ud'uni astajib lakum, call upon me and I'll answer you. This Shahr Ramadan, I also showcased before you the statement of Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wasalam, which people recite in the nights of Shahr Ramadan, Dua Abi Hamza Thumali. In the opening lines of this dua, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam says, Alhamdulillahi alladhi ad'uhu wa la ad'u ghayrahu. All praise belongs to Allah. I make all my du'as to Him. I supplicate to Him and Him alone. Wa la ad'u ghayrahu. And I do not supplicate to any entity other than him. وَلَوْ دَعَوْتُ غَيْرَهُ لَمْ يَسْتَجِبْ دُعَائِي. And if I were to supplicate, if I were to do dua to any entity other than Allah, it would not respond to my supplications. It would not fulfill my du'as. It would not grant me my wishes. This is the teaching of Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wasalam that we are promoting. So if you accuse us of promoting misguidance, well, Billahi alaykum, we swear by Allah, we're not presenting to you anything from our pockets. We're simply presenting to you the statements of the Quran and the authentic teachings of Ahlul Bayt, which agree with the worldview and spirit of the Quran. So if you accuse us of misguidance or make such allegations against us, you need to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You need to have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and understand that you are not actually accusing us, because we are not presenting to you our personal views and opinions the way these other traditional scholars tend to do. We're not presenting to you any evidence that's labeled or classified as fabricated upon the Ahlul Bayt. We are presenting to you narrations which are verified by the Quran and which are accepted even by the traditional 12-verse Shia scholars as being authentic. Which is why you find that some traditional Shia scholars who are in tune with their conscience, they actually, based on these narrations, they then go on to declare Istigaatha to Ghairullah and Dua to Ghairullah to be forbidden. The way our respected Sheikh Muhammad Saeed Bahmanpur, he does in that video which you were referring to. I will request Al-Islaah admins to post it in the description so that those people who haven't seen it may be able to see it. So those people who are preaching that dua should only be done to Allah, Istigaatha only reserve it for Allah when it's across ghaib. On this side of the curtain of ghaib, you can do whatever you like. Seek help from whomsoever you like through natural means. It does not entail giving the sifat of Allah to any creation of His, so it is not shirk. But on the other side of the curtain of ghaib, you have to do iftira upon Allah. You have to invent lies against Allah to say that Allah has empowered certain entities to respond to our prayers and to grant us our wishes, when in reality in the Quran Allah is challenging this and saying, أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ وَيَجْعَلُكُمْ خُلَفَاءَ الْأَرْضِ أَإِلَهٌ مَعَ اللَّهِ قَلِيلًا مَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Allah is issuing an open challenge. Who is it? Tell me, show me, who is it who responds to the call of the distressed when He calls out to him and relieves him from harm, relieves the affliction? Who is it who does this and makes you His vicegerents on this earth? Ilahum ma'allah, is there a deity, is there a God who can do this like Allah or together with Allah? And the answer, unfortunately, of those who do Istigaatha and Dua to Imams is yes. Whereas Allah is saying, no, there isn't anyone other than me who can respond to the call of the distressed. That's why Allah is issuing the whole challenge. Ilahum ma'allah, is there a God together with me who can do this? So Allah is refuting this whole idea that there is any other entity, empowered or unempowered. There isn't anyone who can respond to the call of the distressed from across the curtain of ghaib other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all these ludicrous and ridiculous examples that they bring of the Coast Guard and going to the lawyer and the doctor, this is all on this side of the curtain of ghaib. Through natural means you approach them. You don't do dua to them. You don't sit on your musalla and call out to the Coast Guard and they come and help you, or the police or the ambulance. You don't sit on your musalla from the comfort of your home and without resorting to any natural means of communication, just call out to any random lawyer or doctor out there and they miraculously, supernaturally come and help you. This is why it is not shirk, because it's through natural means. Whereas when you are trying to access or communicate with entities across the curtain of ghaib, there are no natural means to connect with them, number one. Number two, there is no evidence that Allah has empowered any entity other than Him to listen to and hear and respond to calls across the curtain of ghaib. In any case, my simple question and the whole central focus of this question time to the Honorable President of the Nairobi Jamaat is just to clarify, what does he mean by his statement that these are the kinds of issues that Bata and Kamoonpuri stand on to misguide our community? You seriously think we are here to misguide the community? You think we would damage our reputation and we would basically cause ourselves to be isolated, to be hated, to be ostracized, to be bad-mouthed, all for what? Just so that we can misguide the community? Do you even understand how much sacrifice it takes? The way, and I shouldn't say do you even understand, because I think you of all people are uniquely equipped to understand. You yourself, mashallah, are not afraid to swim against the tide. And you yourself, mashallah, are experiencing the results and the effects that accompany when you challenge something. Look at how they're accusing you. You are not even refusing Istigaatha or Tawassul, right? You are simply challenging an absurd heading and title of their video, and immediately they started accusing you of something that you don't even believe in. You're not even refusing Istigaatha or Tawassul. That's why in bold letters you have to deny and say, Baba, don't make false accusations against me. Don't try to smear me with something that's false and inaccurate. I am not. So do you see how when you deal with these traditional people unfortunately are very dishonest. If you stand up for the truth, if you challenge their batil, they will immediately accuse you with a plethora of accusations that are completely counterfactual, and that have no shred of relationship with reality, that are not even in the neighborhood of the truth. And this is exactly the propaganda campaign, the smear campaign that these kind of people have done against us. it belongs to the same genus and the same species. Because they have spread about us that, wal-'iyadhu billah, we are some kind of anti-Shia organization, that we are enemies of Ahlul Bayt, that we don't have love for the Ahlul Bayt, whereas these fools and these ignorant people do not understand that it is love for the Ahlul Bayt, and it is commitment and fierce loyalty to what they stood for and what they gave their lives for that drives us, that inspires us, that motivates us to do the work that we're doing. Don't you see how the very mantra and the very vision of the Islaah channel, if you go to see the featured video on our channel, is what? Is a statement of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, where he says, إِنِّي لَمْ أَخْرُجْ أَشْرًا وَلَا بَطِرًا وَلَا مُفْسِدًا وَلَا ظَالِمًا وإنما خرجت لطلب الإصلاح في أمة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم أريد أن آمر بالمعروف وأنهى عن المنكر وأسير بسيرة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وسيرة أبي أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب عليه السلام. He says, I have not left the city of Medina for any worldly purpose, for fun, for entertainment, for amusement, or out of a desire to ostentatiously display my power and might, or to exult in the land. He says, no, I have set out لِطَلَبِ الْإِصْلَاحِ فِي أُمَّةِ جَدِّي, to bring about Islah, to bring about reformation, revival, realignment, return back to the original teachings of the Quran and the Sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I want to do Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar, and I want to walk on the footsteps of my beloved grandfather Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and my beloved father Amir al-Mu'minin Ali bin Abi Talib alayhi salam. And we here at Al-Islah pledge allegiance to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and to this vision of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, which is that we also want to bring about Islah. We want to do Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar and invite people to abandon the shirk and the ghulu and the bid'ah and the khurafat that was invented by the ghulat and by sectarian elements and artificially inserted into the corpus, into the books of hadith, through which this misguidance then percolated and spread to the grassroots, such that now it has become a part and parcel of the belief system of people, of their, and it's serving as a bedrock and foundation for their ritual practice and their rituals which go against the teachings of the Quran and against the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt. So this is our humble question that we submit to the President. And in Kenya, the rule is that if it's an urgent question time, I think the answer has to be submitted within 2 days or 3 days, I think. But otherwise, it can be submitted within 14 days. This is not an urgent question, but we would definitely appreciate an answer and a clarification on what grounds is this accusation being made, that this claim is being attributed, that the goal here is to use these kinds of issues to misguide the community. Are we now referring to the actual original Tawheed-based teachings of the Ahlul Bayt as misguidance? Would you say that the opening lines of Imam Zainul Abidin's Dua Abi Hamza Thumali, which is basically our whole mawqif, our whole stance is based on those opening lines? It's based on Dua Kumail, in which Imam Ali alayhi salam, even when he comes to tawassul, he says, Wa atawassalu ilayka birububiyyatik. He says, Ya Allah, even when I do tawassul, even when I try to come near to you, I will come near to you. How? He doesn't say bi Muhammadin wa ali Muhammadin or anything of that sort. In Dua Kumail, which you recite every Thursday night, what does Imam Ali alayhi salam say? He says, Atawassalu ilayka birububiyyatik. He says, Ya Allah, I seek to come close to you. I seek nearness to you birububiyyatik, by acknowledging your sustainership and your lordship over me. By accepting you as my Lord, this is my wasila. This is what belief in you, belief in your rububiyyah, belief in you as my caretaker, as my sustainer, as the one who will look after me, as the one who will attend to my every need, who will respond to my every supplication, who will ward every affliction. Believing this about you is my tawassul. It is what I do to come closer to you. So where is the tawassul of Imam Ali in Dua Kumail, and where is what you people are doing? There is a mismatch. And so it's one thing for you to differ and disagree with the Ahlul Bayt and what their original teaching of Tawheed was. But then to accuse that original teaching of being misguidance, this is something that needs serious soul searching and introspection. you need to ask yourself, what has happened to us that we are now becoming intolerant towards the original Tawheed of the Ahlul Bayt? And this kind of intolerance is going to make it difficult for you to recite many of the authentic and reliable Quran verified supplications of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. It will become difficult for you if you have this kind of mindset that anyone who preaches Istigaatha and dua only to Allah and rejects it for entities other than Allah, such a person is preaching misguidance. Well, with this kind of mindset, you're going to start viewing Imam Ali alayhi salam wal-'iyadhu billah as an agent of misguidance. You'll start viewing Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam as someone who is misguiding people in his du'as like Dua Abi Hamza Somali, because they're unapologetically, the Imam is saying, Ad'uhu wa la ad'u ghayrahu. I only call upon Allah and I don't call upon anyone or any entity other than Allah, because I know it's futile, it's useless, it's a waste of time to call upon any entity across ghayb other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then later on in this very same opening passage, Imam then goes on to say, وَأَخْلُ بِهِ حَيْثُ شِئْتُ لِسِرِّي بِغَيْرِ شَفِيعٍ فَيَقْضِي لِي حَاجَتِي. He praises Allah and proudly boasts of the fact that he always calls upon Allah and supplicates to him without using any intermediary, without using any kind of intercession or appealing to any intercessor. And he still, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without any intercessor, without any intermediary, he responds to the du'as and he fulfills the hajat. So if you think this is misguidance, and anyone who is trying to promote this in the communities and in our society is an agent of misguidance, then you seriously need to rethink and reassess and introspect and soul search and ask yourself, what is it that has brought you so far away from the teachings of Ahlul Bayt and that has artificially created such a wide, almost seemingly unbridgeable gulf between you and the Ahlul Bayt, such that what they are teaching and preaching as pure Tawheed, you today are seeing as misguidance, and vice versa. As Ayatollah Muqani repeatedly words, he says majority of what's become popular among the Shias today at the level of belief and practice, in the past, closer to the time of the Imams, it used to be considered extremism, it used to be considered deviation. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.